All right, want to do a quick video on why banks fail. Funny, I didn't learn anything about the fractional reserve banking system when I got my degree in finance in college. And um, people have been working with these institutions their entire life, and people don't even really know how banks make money. And, we're getting our knowledge about the Silicon Valley Bank failure from starving artist journalists who are 30 years old saying that this reminds them a lot of 2008 when they were 15 years old. So I want to unpack the banking fractional reserve system that we work with today and why banks fail so often. This is directly from the FDIC website. This is a list of bank failures, and I'll just kind of scan through this for a little bit. I don't know if you're getting the point here. It's a never-ending list, and here we are. I'm not even halfway through it, and we're only in 2010. So literally, look at each and every one of these lines is indicative of a bank with employees and depositors, and the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. I think they only keep track of them for about 25 years, and the list could even go longer if you went before the year 2020. But anyways, this is how a bank works. A lot of people don't know this. It's crazy that they don't. So you put your money in a bank. Get my pen working here. Let's say you deposit $100,000 into the bank. Even the most conservative bank is going to go to the Federal Reserve, the lending window, and they're going to leverage up that money. And I would say the average bank right now in this country is leveraged about 7-1. Okay. So they take your $100,000 and they turn it into $700,000. I think I just read JP Morgan or Chase. I think they were about 8-1. Where we got into trouble in 2008, they were using exotic financial instruments, credit default swaps, credit default obligations, in leveraging money up 30-40-1. Right? That's not what's happening right now with Silicon Valley Bank. This is not happening. This was a unique set of circumstances where exotic financial instruments were being generated to create more and more leverage. Okay. This is today. This is normal banking day-to-day operations. A bank is going to take the 100,000. They're going to go to the lending window. They're going to leverage it up 7-1. Now, why would they leverage it up 7-1? Well, because they're going to take this $700,000 and they're going to do mortgage loans and automobile loans and credit cards. And why we're in a bit of a pickle right now is because sometimes banks go, we've got so much money, we don't have enough mortgages in car loans, in credit cards that we can even originate and write out. So what is another lending instrument that we can use to deploy this $700,000? Well, bonds, treasuries, corporate bonds, mortgage-backed bonds. Okay. So your bank has now taken $100,000 and they leveraged it up to $700,000, and they've taken the $700,000 and they've given out mortgages. And make no mistake about it, this is an incredibly important element to a highly functioning society, right? You need a mortgage. If banks didn't have this leverage ratio, can you imagine the underwriting that they would do in giving out mortgages? Can you imagine how stringent they would be in getting people access to new automobiles via car loans? This leverage ratio makes the world go round, and it's an important element of our society. So to say like, oh, banks shouldn't use leverage, I think is a little bit naive as well. But to not know how banks make money, I think is also awfully naive. So they've got this $700,000, and naturally all of these financial instruments, these bonds, these mortgages, these car loans, and mind you, I'm a visual person but a terrible artist. That's not a very attractive car there. Looks like a Tesla, the new SUV that they just came out with. This loan portfolio is going to collect interest, right? And let's just let's just pretend that it makes about 5% per year. Now that might be a little high, right, now with what these banks have on their books. But probably with the treasury right now pushing 5%, that's probably a decent number to work from here. So they're going to charge 5% on the whole $700,000. That means if no one defaults, they're going to collect $35,000 in interest on a $100,000 deposit. Look how much profitability is in the banks when things are going well. This phenomenon right here is why we see banks littering every single busy street corner. Jump in a car today and go to the grocery store, count how many banks you see. They're all over the place. And I think sometimes as citizens, we just think, oh, they're there for a matter of public good. No, these are for-profit institutions. And most people haven't shopped commercial real estate like I have. They are on some of the most expensive plots of land throughout our communities. It's because of the level of profitability that they could achieve when things are going well and people are paying their mortgages and their car loans and bonds aren't defaulting and the deposits keep a coming. Now, it's easy to kind of, hey, I want to eat the rich. Banks are too profitable. But like I said, this is an important element of communities. We need banks to leverage up money so people can gain access to liquidity and businesses can grow and create jobs and people can buy houses and change their family tree and what have you. And truthfully, I don't really care so much of how profitable banks are because all I care about is, hey, are my deposits safe? And they're protected by FDIC up to $250,000 per tax ID, which we all of a sudden know about FDIC because what happened to Silicon Valley Bank. And of course, the Federal Reserve and the Treasury came out and they had like a bank term program. I think I butchered the name, and they basically said, hey, all your mortgage loans and all of your government treasuries, we're basically going to eliminate all interest rate risk on these, and we're going to give you a 1-year loan. That way, not every single regional bank has a run on it. So I don't really care how profitable my bank is, so long as my money is protected by FDIC insured thresholds and they're doing a good job of managing their loan portfolio. Okay. Now, how does a bank go under? Because that's the title of this entire video. Well, one, like we saw in 2008, if someone defaults on their mortgage, right now I just saw that we have the highest credit card rates ever. If someone stops paying credit cards or doesn't pay their car loan, well, leverage works in both directions. You took 100,000 and you turned it into 700,000. Well, if someone defaults on the mortgage and it stays on the bank's balance sheet, which is not normal, usually banks sell the mortgage to like a mortgage company, Fannie, Freddie, or something like that. Well, the bank loses $7 for every $1 it took in if a mortgage defaults. Leverage works in both directions. If you make a bet with leverage and it pays off, you get exponentially rich. If you make a bet with leverage and it fails, you go exponentially broke quicker. So that's one thing that's happened. Now, that's not really happening in today's current banking crisis. What's happening today, especially with Silicon Valley Bank, especially with the regional banks, two things. One, all of these bonds that these banks have purchased, and the mortgages for that matter, were purchased earning tremendously low interest rates. Look at what a 30-year fixed mortgage was a year and a half ago or so. It was like under 3%. The 10-year treasury was yielding like 1.7%. Well, what happens to a bond when interest rates go up, right? So say you buy a bond, a 10-year bond, Um, and you put $100,000 in it, and this thing is due to pay you 2% per year, right? So you're going to get your 2% like clockwork. And current interest rates, sure, there's some sort of finance professor who's going to beat me up about my ballpark numbers here, but look, my finance professors never taught me about the fractional reserve banking system in America, so shame on you. So let's say interest rates when you purchase the bond at origination were 2%. Okay. And then interest rates go up, right? So interest rates are now 4%. Well, in essence, for every 1% interest rates go up, this bond's going to lose about 8%. So let's say interest rates here are 3. Well, now your bond's worth $92,000. And then let's say they're now 4. Well, now your bond is worth $84,000. Okay? Now, it's only worth $84,000 if you sell it. If you hold it to its duration, you get your 10,000 you get your $100,000 back, right? So long as the government doesn't default, which would be catastrophic. This is called an unrealized loss. It's unrealized because it wasn't sold. As soon as it gets sold, as soon as all your depositors go, "Give me my money. I want my money. I'm worried. I'm worried you're going to default. Give me my money." Well, the bank needs to sell its bonds. It needs to sell its bonds at market, right? Because that's the deal you make with a bank. I give you my money. When I want it back, you give it right back to me. No surrender penalties, no fees. This is how it works. This is the arrangement. Well, banks, Silicon Valley Bank in particular, did a terrible job of managing its bond and lending portfolio. And interest rates darn near tripled in the last few years. So all of their depositors, two things occurred. One, the depositors, when everyone was fat and happy and sassy, the depositors were giving the bank a lot of money. Well, then the tech sector got slaughtered. Look at some of even the blue chip tech names in 2022. Amazon was down near 40%. Facebook's down 60, 70%. Netflix was down 90%. Like blue chip tech names, FANG stocks, were down tremendously. So how do you think that's going to affect the venture capital and the technology private equity sectors? Checks were not getting cashed and deposited into technology names like they were during the boom of technology stocks. So there's less money going into the coffers, more money going out to the people, and then the people go, "Oh no, I'm worried about this bank failing." So more and more money go out. The bank has to sell bonds at a loss. And oh, by the way, the bank is levered. And next thing you know, the bank has more losses than it does deposits. The FDIC steps in. And the next thing you know, you're on this beautiful list of losers, the FDIC list of failed banks. So hopefully that was helpful, shining a light on how the fractional reserve banking system works in this country. It's alarming to me how few people know it. And I hate to break it to you, you're going to see a lot more names added to this list because of everything I just laid out here. There's going to be a lot of people worried about their regional bank relationship. So they're going to send their money to one of the big four banks, because what we learned in 2008 is there are certain banks that are quote unquote too big to fail, and the government will back them up with all of the money. They'll give them a blank check. So a lot of people are worried about their regional banking relationship, even though the Federal Reserve and the Treasury did this bank term loan rate thing. I forget the name of it. There's still yet going to be people worried. So they're going to take money out of the banks, and the banks are going to be levered, and they're going to have to sell their bonds at losses. Hopefully their bond portfolio, instead of it being a 10-year bond, hopefully the duration of their bond portfolio is only like 2-3 years, Because if your duration of your bond portfolio is only 2 or 3 years, you're not going to see these massive losses. You're just going to see a little downtick because people know darn well they're going to get their money back in a couple of years. Hopefully this was helpful. Please feel free to comment on the video, reach out to my office if you took exception to any of the concepts I drew out here, or if you want to rift with me, or if you want me to make another video explaining anything in greater detail. Thanks so much for tuning in.